go. All right. Let's just do like 2 more minutes. If anybody's got something they want to pitch really quick to the rest of the group, open mic for a couple of minutes, and we'll kick it off in about 3 minutes. What, nobody? Julie, tell us about your podcast.
That's so funny. I'm like, everybody's so quiet. Come on, guys.
Yeah.
Well, actually, so I do have a really fun podcast. It's called Ask Me How I Know, and it looks a little bit like this. It's very different than current podcasts. Actually, Jerome and I have similar podcasts because we talk about kind of the missteps, the things that can happen, but I've deviated a little bit, and it's just fun conversation. So it's a really great way to see the other side of people. No list of questions, pure conversation. You never know where it's going to go.
Yep. And it is a fun podcast.
It's always fun to talk about the dirt because nobody does.
People want to know about the dirt. Corey, I got to have you on there because I think we'd have fun. I love your podcast. I listen to it when I'm like working out at the gym. Did you guys do that? I have like space arms. It's really fun.
That's awesome.
Well, I'll tell you, Corey's podcast is probably the right podcast to listen to while you're at the gym because, his energy just comes through the podcast. It's just like, yeah, I can do one more rep. Yeah, I can do one more rep. It's just there. So good enough. Jerome, tell us about your podcast. Jerome, are you able to talk right now? You got the
I can talk.
All right.
I just hang out in the background and get some dirt on Corey so I could bring it back up later. But up, man.
What's up, brother?
Multifamily missteps. We bring in operators from around the country and get them to tell us their biggest mistakes so that you don't have to make the same one. I don't actually think we're competing in multifamily. I think everybody should be collegial. And if you are competing, it's in very rare occasions. So if you can learn from mistakes, there's no reason for you to go through the same ones. And so that's what multifamily missteps is about. And a lot of people who are pursuing apartment investing, whether it's syndication or joint ventures, is looking to leave something else. And so we have a podcast called Dream Catchers, where we tell the stories of people who have exited the matrix. And Steve, you got to come on Multifamily Missteps. You've closed, buddy.
Yep. Steve just closed on a place in Augusta.
I'd love that. Right on.
Yep. All right. Hey, Daisy, if you got a second and you're able to talk now, do you want to tell us about your podcast? Make It Rain is what it's called. All right. So Daisy has a podcast called Make It Rain, and it's awesome. So check it out. Daisy Serrano and Luke DeBro are partnering on that one.
Hi, Brian.
Oh, there you are.
Am I too late?
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Daisy Serrano, and I have a podcast along with my fiance and business partner, Luke. It's called Make It Rain, Multifamily Investing for Millennials. And we focus on providing more access. We'd love to see more millennials like ourselves investing in multifamily and just achieving their goals and achieving financial freedom for their families. So definitely invite you to check us out. And I'm excited to be here today. Thank you, Brian. This is my first time attending. So.
All right. Thanks a lot. Perfect introduction. All right.
Thank you.
So here we're going to start kick off the meetup now. So as you guys all know, we got Corey Peterson on the line. He's the owner of Kahuna Investments. He's managed and acquired over $95 million in real estate across the country. Big number. He's got a couple of books. The most recent one is Copy Your Way to Success, Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. And he's got another one that I've got in arm's reach, which I've been reading recently, which is, and my virtual background's killing it, but Why the Rich Get Richer. So two really good books you guys can pick up. He's also the host of the Multifamily Legacy podcast. And he speaks around the country on multifamily investments, including Harvard and Nasdaq, two really big, recognizable places. So that said, Corey, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. I'm super excited. I love talking real estate. I love talking about making money in business. So thanks for having me as a guest, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. This is great. Good for you. are good for us for you to have you on the line with us. But one thing we talked just recently, and one thing I think I want to start out is your goal in life to be the provider of fun. No, the supplier of fun is how you put it.
Supplier of fun, yeah.
Tell us about supplying fun.
Well, so when you get to the point where money no longer drives you, you've got to find something else that is your why. Why do you keep wanting to do and work and things like that? And for me, once the money aspect finally no longer mattered, what I really thought when I thought about it, I was like, man, I want to be the supplier of fun. And in other words, like, I want to give people experiences, and usually those are my friends and family, the people that I care about. And so, for example, last fall, we took 10 neighbors to Hawaii, and I got to supply the fun, right? So they just paid for their flights to get over, and then they insisted that. But then I paid for everything else, paid for the place that we stayed, all our little retreats, our food and stuff like that. And we all had a blast. And the really cool part was none of my neighbors, now listen, I don't live in the Taj Mahal. I've been living in the same house that I've lived in for the last 15 years. So like I'm in middle America right here, right? Like I am not too good for myself. But my neighbors, they'd never been to Hawaii. And so I got to give them that first experience and showed them how we do it. So it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And that's something that I think everybody will remember forever. It's building relationships, and, supplying fun. I made it my goal now to also become a supplier of fun. So that's something that I took
it's like the next level. It's like once you get past money, it really is something that you could really, I think most people relate to it. And because you want to do good, you want to spread some goodwill. And it's just a great term. It's not even my term. Like most of the things in my life are never original ideas. Mm-hmm. I wrote that book, Copy Your Way to Success, for a reason. Mm-hmm. Someone else said it, and I was like, dude, that's a great quote. I'm going to take it and make it mine.
Yeah. And if somebody uses that quote, copy your way to success, they can't get mad at you for using their quote. I mean, it's just kind of like, hey, I'm just doing what you told me to do. So
that's it, man. Rip it away.
Yeah. So, hey, Corey, would you do us a favor and tell us about your story?
Yeah. So, yeah. Where do you want me to start? I mean, I can start at the beginning, kind of, sort of.
Let's start at the beginning, somewhere between, birth and, middle age. But,
well, I'll preface this. So I want to tell you guys this little story of what I did and how I accomplished it, mm-hmm. because hopefully it'll inspire you a little bit to say that you can do and have whatever you want in life. And for me, I grew up poor. I grew up in a poor family. I grew in the Ozarks, just like the movie or the Netflix Ozarks, that one. And we meth capital of the world, I think. And I lived on a 180-acre farm and wasn't voted most likely to succeed, barely made it out of high school. And when I really got into real estate, I was a used car salesman. So like that's a real high level of achievement there. And then I met my wife of now 18 years. And she basically changed my life. Okay. Like the real rule is marry a great woman and she'll change your life forever. Is what my wife did for me. But what happened was 19 years ago, my life truly changed forever. I went to Hawaii and my mom was married to this man named Bruce, and I like to call him Bruce Wayne. Now he wasn't Batman, but Bruce was loaded. And so we go to Hawaii, and we actually went to the island called Kauai, which is the Garden Island. It's the most beautiful island of all the islands, in my opinion. And Bruce had a house right on the ocean, right on the beach. And I was blown away. I'd never seen, this thing was right on the cove. Shelly and I, our first day there, we wake up early in the morning. We walked this cove. We watched the sun come up. And I remember standing hand in hand with her, like we soaked it in. And then I looked over at Bruce's house from across the cove, and I was like, man, what does this guy do? Because Bruce was living differently. Like he had fine cars, nice art in the house. He had the home on the beach, and like his phone wasn't ringing. Like this thing here didn't dry. Like you could just tell it was a different life. Bruce had time and money. Mm-hmm. No doubt, unequivocal, that's what he had. And so I was like, man, what does this guy do? I had to find out. And guess what Bruce said? He said that he was in real estate and that he owned apartments. And so now I wish the story got better with him, but it doesn't. Bruce was a grumpy old man, and I guess my mom was really pretty. Don't judge my mom. She got me to Hawaii. But I left the island thinking that Bruce was the Big Kahuna. And so about 6 months after that trip, I read this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. We all know that book. And I like had a real life mentor, like that's Bruce. I knew that that was Bruce. And I'm like, oh my God. And so I went out and bought every book I could on real estate. And basically in 2005, I sold out to the ideal. I was ready and I wanted to start my own company. And I was like, well, what do I name it? And then I thought about like, what do I really want to achieve? I wanted to be more like Bruce. And so I named it Kahuna Investments because I wanted to be the big kahuna just like Bruce. And I started on the journey. And so what I actually did was, I like to say I started off as a wholesaler, but that's not true. I started off with, I took a line of credit out of my home and I bought 3 or 4 homes. I flipped them, made some money. And then I was like, I'm going to start doing the long-term game. So I was like, I'm going to buy rental properties. And so I put a chunk of all my money in like 3 rental properties. And after the third one, I had no more money left over. And I was only making $600. Okay. Not a bad, it was a bad move on my part because I ran out of money and I didn't have any more money. And I thought it was so good that I quit my job. And so I was left in it was my first big roadblock, which was I ran out of money and I couldn't live off of $600 a month. Mm-hmm. So I ended up going back to work and get a job. Luckily, I had a great friend, a mentor. This is where I say copy your way to success. I had a friend that was a financial advisor with Edward Jones. And I was like, dude, I would love to work for Edward Jones. You know, do you have to have a degree? He's like, no, you don't have to have a degree to get this job. You just got to be a good salesman. I'm like, well, hell yeah. Like, I sold cars. Come on, man. So it was the hardest test that I had ever studied for, and I made a 72. That's just good enough to pass. You need 70.
Yep.
And so I kind of got into that game, and that's really what kept me from the big crash in 2007 or 2008, right? Because I was being a financial advisor. So in 2009, when the market crashed, that's really when I went into real estate full time, right? So I'd moved to Arizona, being a financial advisor, the market crashes. When the market crashes, listen, my heart left the business. Like when you realize that you have no control as a financial advisor, I was just a paid salesman. And here I am selling all these things to these people, and I had no control over it, and their value went to half. And then to add, you know, insult to injury, if they wanted to move their money, I had to charge them an extra commission. And it was bad. So like at the end of the day, my heart left the business. As soon as my heart left it, so did my sales. And so I got fired. Now, nice. I got fired at 8 o'clock. So I came to the office at 8 o'clock. I got a meeting with my boss at 10. When I walked into the office, my secretary couldn't even look at me. And I knew that I was getting fired. So here's what happened. So I want to make sure I illustrate this. And that's 2 hours of time. I'm sitting there in my office all by myself, and I'm saying to myself, man, what am I going to do? Right? And this is where it happened. This is something magical that happened in my office. I shut my door to my little office. I had 4 walls and just a little computer. And I was saying to myself, man, what am I going to do? And I knew already what I wanted to do. That little kid inside, the one that wants to win real bad, the one that wants to be successful and have money and all the things that Bruce was about, he knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to do real estate. And he was just like, put me in, coach, put me in. And yet my 40-year-old version of myself or 36 years old version of myself was saying, you got a wife, kids, mortgage, and you need money. And like, that's a bad idea, bro. Right? Yeah. And so I was wrestling with that idea. And finally, that little kid, that little voice kicked that grown man's ass. Right? And I remember in the solidarity of that office, I made the most deep down, gut-wrenching, I'm talking everything that I am commitment. And I made it to myself with no one else watching. that I was willing to do whatever it took to be successful in real estate.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, hands down, willing. I'm telling you, if someone would have said, you got to stay up till 4 o'clock in the morning every day for 6 years, I've been like, yep, no problem. I was that dedicated to that mission, right? And anyway, I get a little excited about that part because to me, it was the reason why everything else in my life has worked thus far. Okay, the power of your mind, guys, is everything. It really is the most important thing. The how is just the apart multifamily, right? We'll talk about that here in a minute, a little bit of the how, but it's the mind that drives it. And you've got to tell yourself daily. So like I came out of that office feeling like freaking Rocky, right? I was like, man, you know, it was an awesome feeling. It lasted for 30 seconds, by the way.
Yeah.
Because then I had to go home and tell my wife what I did. And so again, this is where you know, having the right spouse and support structure doesn't even always have to be your spouse. It could be your mentors or people that really understand your business mind. But I went and I shared all my doubts and fears and hopes and dreams with my wife. And I said, you know, I promise I will be successful. I'll do whatever it takes. And then my wife looked at me and honestly, she did the best thing she ever did. She's just like, I believe in you and I trust you, but don't fail. Because what was that on the line was everything, was my wife. And they say that money doesn't, you know, whatever, marriages, you know, you got to have some money. Okay, if you're out of money, marriage can get complicated. Just trust me on this. Yeah.
You know, I had a similar moment. My moment, I remember the same thing, was sitting on a Navy ship in the middle of a Gulf in the Middle East. You know, it was, you know, probably one of my the biggest emotional roller coaster I've ever been on. And that one day it was, you know, just out of the ashes. It's kind of like the phoenix. You know, you rise up and it's just like you hit that low point and it's like, what am I going to do? You know, that was my commitment day. And so that really resonates with me. You know, you hit that mark and you're like, all right, you know, I'm not doing this again.
I'm changing
this again. I'm changing. Yep. I'm going to do it. So,
and it was that powerful in my mind. And so then I had to wake up, but here's the challenge though, is the next day, those feelings were not so strong. So I had to remind myself daily that I was going to be successful. Right. And that I was going to be, that I was successful. I was telling myself in the mirror, I'm a multimillionaire. Money wants to flock to me. Actually, I didn't even learn how to raise money. So let me start my journey. So I left there and I was like, well, what do I do? And I was like, well, what did Edward Jones teach me? They taught me how to network and how to talk to money. Right. I'm like, okay, those are 2 skill sets that are really good that I know how to do. So number one, I started going to the RIAs, kind of like this group. Right.
Yep.
But I went to a local RIA. Now I'm not no dum-dum, because I learned, I was like, hey, if I'm going to the RIA, there's a guy that's leading the group, right? And so I was like, hey, John, you know, I'm new to your group. Can you point out some of the players, like some of the real guys that are doing real estate in the room? And he pointed like 3 guys out. Well, guess who's sitting by him now?
Yep.
Me, right? And I'm like the order taker, man. So I got my pen out. I'm like, so where do you like to do your rehabs? How much rehab do you like? You like lots, a little bit, you know? What's your average profit? What's your deal size look like? You know? And I'm like taking the order. I'm like, well, it's so funny because like I find deals like that all the time. Would you pay me a wholesaling fee if I could find a deal like that? And they're like, they all said yes. And so then that's what I did. I became a wholesaler because I had no money. I had not a whole lot of credit. But I had a huge drive. So I took what I had and I was like, I'm going to go make this happen. Pretty soon, I was wholesaling probably 4 or 5 deals a month. And I was making like a $3,000 fee. And that was not bad. But the truth was, these were my deals. I knew they were great deals. And these guys, I was managing their entire rehabs for them. And they're making like $25,000 or $30,000 rips. And we're just going bing, 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 bing every month, like clockwork. Finally, something magical happens, right? Because I really wanted to make the $25,000, $30,000 rips. And I was like, man, if I could only find some money. Well, I happen to know, I actually was playing racquetball with one of my older clients from Edward Jones. And he didn't have any money. But he lived in a retirement community. And I was like, man, he's got to know somebody. that's got some cheddar, right? So, and Carl had kind of watched me leave the financial services industry and then start doing real estate. I was starting to get some momentum. I felt I was getting confident. Like I knew how to find deals. I just needed some money. And so I asked Carl as a friend, and I was asking Carl for help. And I said, Carl, you know, listen, if you know somebody, let me know. And he was like, yeah, okay, I'll see what I can do. Well, the next day, guess who calls me? It's Carl. He's like, hey, Corey, hey, do you still want to do that thing? You know, you don't know this, but my home's totally paid for, and I can borrow money at 2%. If you pay me 12%, I can make a spread. How much money do you want? Now, that's a big question. That's a loaded question, okay? And I was like, okay, what do I tell him, right? Do I tell him the full amount? And so I just like, screw it, I'm just going to go for it. And so I was like, Carl, I need $85,000. And Carl, there's a small pause. Yeah, okay, yeah. Where do you want me to send it? And just like that, I'd raised $85,000. And I'm telling you, man, like I went, it was like going into the telephone booth as Clark Kent. And I spun around that sucker, man. I come out like Superman, like I raised private money.
Yeah.
And
huge right there. I mean, that first investment there, absolutely huge.
So here's what I learned. And I want you guys to write this down. This is one of the rules that I've used to raise all the money that I've raised. And we've raised millions and millions of dollars for funding for multifamily. And it was number one, don't ever ask people for money. Number two is only ask, who do you know? And what I mean by that is, just like Carl, it's the same rules that I learned from Carl. Because I asked Carl as a friend, I was just asking him for his help, to help me. And I believe this. I believe the right people will always self-select. Okay? So in other words, in today's idea, we call that kind of like your credibility kit. Okay? If you don't have a credibility kit, you need to get one. You need to do, and that's really, you know, here's what I do, here's the market, and here's some of my stuff. Now, if you don't have any stuff, then you need to go find a partner that does, right? Because it's a lot easier borrowing someone's credibility. So you can put it together and make it look like, hey, I'm got this thing that I'm doing. And in the multifamily business, we call that a credibility kit. And so it tells you what you should do. Now, I was doing it for single family in the beginning, but I transitioned to multifamily. But I got good at this, and I just started simply I start with friends and family. Who do you know that I should know, right? Yeah, and really it's kind of like, hey, I got this thing. I want to share my business plan with you because I want you to poke some holes in it. And so, because I want you to be able to refer me to some people. And at the end of the pitch, they're like, well, shit, I'm interested. Mm-hmm. Like, you gonna ask me? And I have always believed this. The right people self-select. The wrong people don't, right? And sometimes you don't want the wrong people in your deals anyways. And eventually, some of those wrong people become the right people. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes no doesn't mean no, okay? That's just, we all understand this. It just means they need to know more. They need to see more. They need to feel more. And so, like, a lot of times when I get investors that don't invest in a deal, what I'll do now is I'll still drip on them. And I'll send them a financial statement of a deal that I did. Hey, John, just want to touch base with you. Hey, things are going good on that one investment that we talked about. I know you didn't get in it, but I just want to send you the financials just so you can see what we're doing. Just just little things, right? Mm-hmm. And usually they'll come back like, well, Corey, let me know when you have your next deal. Because they weren't sure. They wanted to fill out the waters. And so it happens all the time with money. And the other tip is when you do your first deal and you start making some payments to investors, here's another one of the best investments you'll ever do is take that person to dinner and say, listen, I want to invite you and a couple of your friends and I'd like to take you to dinner and your spouses, right? And I'll take you to dinner and you pick the place where we're going to go have dinner at. And they do that. And then all you do is show up and you pay for it. Mm-hmm. That's all you have to do. You don't have to screw it up because your buddy that invested the money or woman or whatever it is, they're going to do all the talking for you. And you just shut up there, smile and just be cute. And then at the end, you go back and say, how much money did we raise? And it really works. It works just like that. I mean, in this business, we're in the business of relationships. Okay. More important than anything is relationships. And I don't want to go on a tangent, but I'm just thinking about this right now. So, and I'm going to use this to show people. So this is something I learned also in business a long time. You guys may not be able to see this. So
Kahuna Investments, Corey Peterson. Got
yep.
it.
This is my personal stationery. Okay. It's on a 3x5 card. It's a thick cardstock paper. And it looks like it's coming from, that's the CEO, right? Like that looks, it's gold or a leaf. I'm trying to think what it's called.
Gold leaf?
Yeah.
Gold
whatever.
foil?
The foil. Yeah, the
Yeah.
foil. That is what I'm trying to say is the foil makes it look nice. Okay. But it looks like it's coming from the desk of the CEO. And anytime I meet anybody, I write them a handwritten letter as much as I can, right? If I'm at an event sometimes and I really had someone that I liked or that we had really had a connection, I would write them. I bring this. I also bring, guys, this is a wax stamp seal of my house logo.
Nice.
Right? And I got a little like setup right here. Okay. That I put a wax seal on the back of it. That's how you step it up a level. Right? And like, so when I'm at an event, sometimes I'll go and I meet somebody that I really want to make sure I get to know them. I'll write them a handwritten deal and I'll give it to the front desk, say, hey, can you put this under their door? And when they wake up the next morning, guess what they get? My handwritten letter. Tell me that doesn't win influence, right? Because it does. And that's a little thing you can do to like those little personal touches. Anytime you do more personal touches like that, the written letter is a forgotten art, right? All right, so let me transition. So I'm kind of going slow, Brian. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. I don't know how much time we got, but
So we got a half hour.
I'll get there.
Yep, we got it. We're in a good spot right now. I see smiles and I see nods. I see happy people. So we're in a really good spot. If we go past the hour and we still have smiles and nods, I'm not going to stop you.
Well, because I want to open up for Q&A too, because I really want to. All right, so here I am. I'm a wholesaling, or I'm actually fix and flipping. Okay, I'm starting to make money. Like, dude, I raised like $3 million quick, and I'm doing now all these rehabs. I mean, like, from the world's view, I look like I've made it. Okay, I'm doing pretty good, pretty proud of myself, starting to feel a little cocky, you know, but life has a way of kind of like humbling you, okay? And so here's what happened to me, and I want to share this story because this is my true why I've got in this business. Now, I pride myself in being a full-time dad, okay? I wanted time and money so I could be the kind of dad that I wanted to my kids and be a husband to my wife and date my wife and love my wife and all those things in between, okay? But here I was getting sucked in by this monster called fix and flip, and I was going like crazy. Into the world's eyes, I looked super successful. But it got to the point where like my son's like, Dad, are you going to be at my game? And this was like a soccer game. And my son's like, I don't know, 8 years old or something like that. And I look at him, it's like, no problem, son, I'll be there. But I was like, dude, this game's on a Saturday, and it was Friday, and I was like, man, there's 3 homes I didn't look at that I need to go check up on my rehab. So I was like, okay. I'm gonna wake up real early. I'll get all these things done so I can be at the 3 o'clock game. Okay, that was my plan. And then I wake up early, start going, and then like it's like the biggest messes all show up at each property, and I become the Lowe's runner, right? I'm going to Lowe's, grab pick apart, and just end of the long story. I get there at the very end of the game, man. And here's what happened next. And it breaks my heart, right? It breaks my heart. Because I came and dude, I see my son and he's coming off the field. And this is always tough for me to really talk about a little bit. So, sorry. You know, he comes off the field crying, man. And, it was one of the toughest things I'd ever have to go through, to watch your son like cry in a way that like that kind of sob, man. And I knew that I'd failed my kids, my son at that moment. And all I could do was put his head on my shoulder and tell him I'm sorry. And it was that moment that I just knew that I'd screwed up. I let money change everything that I was doing in pursuit of stupid ass money. And I just knew that it was wrong. And I felt so bad. I mean, there's no worse feeling than disappointing your young kids. Okay. And of course, kids are resilient. And of course, he wants to jump in my truck and wants me to take him home. And that made it worse because he's in the car on the side, just, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, you know, it's killing me. I get him home. My wife looks at me with that look like, you got to fix this, dude. You screwed up. And I remember going into my truck and I was driving around and I'm telling you, I'm cursing myself. I am beating myself up so hard to the point where I finally just repent and I just ask God for forgiveness. And I finally forgave myself for making the mistakes. And I finally came to a place where I was like calm, right? And then it happened. And this is the point that changed my life forever. Is I drove by this apartment complex and I've driven by it a million times. And I used to say, I wish I could own an apartment complex. And in that moment, in like total emptiness, God touched me, man. And he's like, look over there. And I look over there and I ask myself, how can I own an apartment complex? And as soon as I framed the question right, my brain started to fire. It started to work for me. And I was like, it started like, oh God. And then I went back to Bruce. And I thought about Bruce, and Bruce had time and money. He didn't have the problems that I was facing. And I knew it was the right answer, man. And I flipped to UE. I went to Barnes and Nobles, which now we just go to our cell phones, Amazon. And I buy the 4 books, all the books I could on multifamily. And so, and a year later, I bought my first apartment complex. 2011, I bought my first apartment complex for $3.2 million in Greenville, South Carolina, for all you people over there on the East Coast, right? Greenville.
That's actually my virtual background right now. It's downtown Greenville. So
right
love the place.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it.
Larkins on the river, man. Yeah, you're close.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I bought this property for $3.2 million. I raised $1.4 million of private money. And just kind of fast forward that deal. I mean, that deal, it was a C-class property in a B-plus area. Great problems. Like it had a drug problem, it had an occupancy problem. It was like one of the last REOs on the market in 2011. So it was bank owned and bad management. So we turned that thing around. We did a really good job on it. I sold it 5 years later for $8.8 million. Okay. For anybody counting, that's $4.7 million of profit. Okay.
Yes.
And that deal set me free for the rest of my life. That was one deal out of the many that we have now, but that first one was one that totally set me free after marinating for 5 years, right? So from 2011 to 2016, you know, that's when we still were acquiring more properties, but that one was the first one that ripened on the vine, and when it was ready to sell, it's in actually CoStar. So I was looking at CoStar. I bought it at a 10 cap. I sold it at a 4.4 cap.
Jeez. Wow.
Yeah.
A little bit of compression there. I mean, just a little bit.
Yeah. So, man, it was just like, so I love this game, right? So now what I've learned to do is I look at it as, I learned that, well, let's talk about raising money for just one little smidget too. I've learned how to raise cheap capital. Can we all agree that there's lots of money out there, right? A lot of it, though, is super expensive, okay? And I hate that kind of money. So, and let me just talk about when you go to look for money, this is my opinion, what you don't look for and where you don't look for it at. I don't go to multifamily events trying to find money. All you idiots that are doing that, it's the wrong place to fish. Okay, there's lots of ponds out there, man, that have great trophy fish, but it's not at that place, man, because those are sharks. You're fishing with sharks. You want the big bass, man, the fat, happy ones. And where those big bass are at, they're called IRAs. Okay. They're with the financial advisor. I used to be one. This is how I know. Okay. The broker, it's always the place, funniest place, Wall Street, is where millionaires will come and talk to brokers who are broker than they are to get financial advice. Stupid. Okay. And those advisors, once you get seasoned, you learn to say this. Like, I would never tell my investors 12% is a great return. I would say, like, we're shooting for 6 to 7. 6 to 7 is a great return. If you got 12, that's like the lottery. Don't ever plan on it, right? You know why? Because I set my expectations low with my client. So if they hit 6 to 8, 6 to 7, guess what? They're happy and the money never leaves. If I told them 12, it leaves all the time. Now, with the sharks that we're talking about, when you go to the multifamily events, what do they want? We all know the number. It's 20. Plus, what are you going to give me on the GP? Are you going to give me the GP? Right? No, you don't get no GP. Okay? Well, I mean, listen, the hardest word you'll ever master in this business is 2 letters, 1 word. No. Okay? But you've got to learn to say it, right? And Julia, you're right in the center and you keep smiling. I love it that you're just smiling. You're giving me the juice that I need right now, okay? But the truth is, there's so much money, trillions and trillions of dollars of people that are in the financial world, stock market. And if you can reach those people, you don't have to give them 20%. So one of the ways we do it is we give our investors, we call it 6 and 6. That's a 6% preferred return payment over the deal based on cash flow. And then when we sell our asset, on the exit, we give them an additional 6% annualized for the amount of time they've had it. There is no profit split, okay? So the most that my investors will ever make is 12% return, okay? Now, that is beautiful because you know what it does for you? It puts
Increases
you in
your
the
profits.
money.
Yeah. So basically after that 12%, you're taking home everything.
That is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds sweet to me, actually. Yes.
So I've always figured this like, so like, this is the question. So when Mauricio is my syndication attorney, right? And so when I approach things, kid, I mean, I always never say, I'm never that smart. I'm not sharp tool. Okay. I'm a very dull, boring tool. Okay. But I know how to ask questions and I'm a very resourceful. So I was like, hey, Mauricio, can we do this? How can we do this? This is what I want to do. Can we do it? Looking at, can we do it? And he's like, well, hold on. Let me. Yeah, I think we can do it. I'm like, cool. Right. And so we did it. And now I didn't start off at 6 and 6. I started off at like 8 and 8, 8 and 8 plus a profit split. And then I went to 8 and 8, no profit split. Then I went to 7 and 7, and then I'm at 6 and 6. I think I need to try for 5 and 5, right? Who has the lowest cost of capital wins.
Yeah.
And now I've lost investors as I've tried, went down, but some of them come back. A lot of them come back, right? And so you learn to tranche your capital, but you also learn to talk to your capital and control your capital, right? And control their expectations. Right. And so if you're wanting to do something new that's going to be lower, you've got to set the expectation that things are going to change down the road. Right. Guys, here's where we're going. Here's what I see coming down the marketplace. And then the greatest thing to do sometimes is the ones that are, well, I want that 12%. Well, it's not 12 anymore. Now it's 10. They get all bitchy. They want to, and they're trying to push you. He's like, hey, listen, and this is the great thing. Is like, John, I would love to you, but I got a lot of other people to talk to today. So like, I want to help you, but if you don't act now, you might be out. And it's the greatest feeling. And sometimes they come back afterwards and you get to say, like when you oversubscribe and you say, well, sorry, man, you're a little bit late. Next time I need you to really come in.
Yeah.
And they're like, gosh, damn it. Right. Yeah. It's the best feeling in the world, guys. Right. Anyway, so that's my story in apartments.
Yeah. We'll have to put you on the waiting list. That is a fun thing to say. We'll have to put you on the waiting list. And
I actually don't like saying it. I'm like, listen, hey, because I'm like, listen, I'm going to work really hard to go find you another deal because I want another deal. I say that to them. The truth is, how many deals does Corey need to do in a year? Okay. 1. Okay. Corey would be happy with 1 to 3 deals. That's my speed. Why? Because Corey doesn't need any more properties. Corey's financially free. So Corey says no a lot to a lot of things, right? And this is where I want to challenge you guys in that thinking. Sometimes people are like, I got to do deals, and you can ride some momentum, but it's hard to like sprint forever. I can only sprint for a short amount of time, and then I got to learn like to marathon, man, like, right? And just take my time and enjoy it, and like look over to the side and look the view, like, oh, that's beautiful over there. Smell the roses, right? And then you're like, because sometimes then you like get your deal, and then you got to sprint real quick, right? Because you got all the things you got to do. But then once you get off that, you're like back to marathon, right? And that's just how I've lived my life, because I want to have time and money, sunsets and palm trees.
Yep.
That's my deal. Like that's sunsets and palm trees is what I'm trying to build here. And I have that vision of what it looks like. And then I don't add to things that are going to complicate my vision.
Yeah. Now I got a question for you. You talked about the day you got fired from Edward Jones, and then a couple of days later where you had to keep on reminding yourself of your purpose and your goals. What did you do to do that? Did you have a vision board? Did you have, a daily routine? How did you keep that in the forefront?
I like to say I had a great routine, but I don't. Okay. I read this book called The Answer by John Assaraf. It's an older book, somewhere in my deal over there. Yep. But it was talking about like telling yourself, it's kind of like The Answer. I guess there's another book called The Answer. I never read The Answer, but I read The Secret. I'm sorry, The Secret. Yeah. It's a lot like The Secret. This is called The Answer. The Secret's a little too far hokey pokey out there for me. The Answer is more like think it and then do some work. And I was like, okay, I'm cool with that. I like thinking and do some work. Yeah. But it was really talking about the power. And so what all I did is I just made myself commit to myself in the morning. I was like, I'm going to tell myself, and when I'm getting ready, I would really truly look at myself and tell myself, I'm a multimillionaire. I'm a money magnet. Money wants to come to me because I know how to make it grow. And I said that all the time, right? And I was just really trying to attract money and honestly, from the moment that I left Edward Jones, okay, this is going to be really weird. I'm telling you, everything I've ever needed has shown up at the time that I needed it all my life, ever since that commitment of that goal. And I see it, Brian, with anybody that's successful. Okay. If you guys are experiencing success right now, it's because you have set yourself up differently and you've put yourself in a mindset that is a different frequency than most of the world. Yeah. That's just a fact. And it's a different sync. But if you were to like pull all those people and say, what is it? They'll all go back to like, it was the commitment they had or this burning desire, this goal. Look at the Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? I wanted to be massive. I wanted to be big, if you read into his life, he was super, and that's bodybuilding. It has nothing to do with multifamily, but it's the same trait. I like, dude, success. I get it. Yeah. Get it. I was so focused on my deal and I had to tell myself, even when I didn't feel like it. And that's where honestly, like I do one more rep, get the biceps, and so taking your reps, doing the work. Yeah. That's ultimately how you do it.
A lot of people have heard me say, I've got 318 days left in the Marine Corps. All right. And it's not because, I hate the Marine Corps or, every other day kills me. That's just my way of keeping that in front of me in the forefront. So, and I agree with your answer in a lot of ways, in my path, my first deal kind of landed in my lap, and it landed in my lap with 3 partners, and it was just one of those things where, I couldn't have planned it any better. It was just, I was, working so hard for this.
But you goal. Put yourself in the position.
Yes. You make your own luck.
And then things happen. Like, that's what I'm telling you. Like, the world will give it to you. It automatically, it's weird. Yep. That happens.
Yep. Julie just made a trip down to Alabama, and it's going to, that's going to be her, boom, she put herself out there. She's got 2 big thumbs up, and All right. So got a couple questions from the group, and for everybody, if you got a question, throw them in the chat, and I'll just I'll moderate for you. All right. So two questions about your first deal, the one in Greenville. First part of the question is, did you partner with somebody else, with an experienced syndicator? And the second part of the question is, what did you guys do to turn the property around? Was there renovations involved and what?
Yeah, great question. So I did partner with two people. I actually went to a Dave Lindell event. And so this is how you do that. Like, so you don't look for money when you're at those events, right? Multifamily events, but you act like you say you got the money. So I went into this room, and it was like day one of a 4-day event. And they're like, hey, does anybody got any announcements? So I was like, oh my God, this is my cue. So I pop up and I was like, hey, my name's Corey Peterson, and I've got a crap ton of money, and I'm looking for some deals. If you've got a deal, I would love to see it, and bring it to me, right? We may want to fund it. Now, I didn't pay for lunch or dinner for the rest of the week. And everybody was like, Corey, look at my deal. Corey, look at my deal. And like, that's when I learned the Corey Leone method, the Godfather, right? Yeah, I don't know. Like, let me take a look. I need to wet my beak. And so, because here's what I know, like, this is going to be a shock to everybody on this thing. The money's not in real estate. Okay? The money's not in real estate. I'm going to tell you right now, the money is not in real estate. Real estate's the vehicle. But guys, the real money, the money's in the money. Okay? He who can control capital and make it go and command it to work, that's the real skill set we're talking here. That's the real skill set. Okay? If you can master that skill set, deals will come to you just like they came to me. And these two dudes, they're idiots, by the way. So to answer the question, I went into partnership with two idiots. I didn't know the operating agreement, and this is another big one. So going to this deal, and guess what they did? They were mischievous. On the day of closing, they changed the operating agreement, and I didn't catch it, nor did my attorney. What they changed was I had 75% ownerships of the deal, of the outcome, the profit, and I was supposed to have 75% of the voting rights, but instead I've got 75% and then 33, 33, 33. Okay. All of a sudden I had all my capital in the deal, and I couldn't make any choices because those two guys would override me all day. Right. And I had signed the document. No, the operating agreement. Okay. Now, what did I do? Listen, I did get mad. I was pissed off. Okay. And I'm not too proud, but I may have pulled the Godfather on this, so I told him I was coming to his house, and hell was coming with me. My big bat or something like that.
I was thinking a horse head in the bed for a second, but
yeah, right.
All right, good. I'm glad you didn't do that.
No, I didn't do that, but I did say, I flew out to him, was like, hey, and I brought a moderator. I'm like, we're making a deal right now, and I'm buying you out, you piece of shit. You piece of shit. Yeah. And so that's what I did, and it cost me $250,000, of which I didn't have $250,000, right? But I knew how to raise it. Yep. So I made another call. Hey, John, I need $250,000. Can you wire it to me? Yeah. Yes. Boom. Right. Now, how could I do that? Because in my single family fix and flip days, I got really good at raising capital. And these guys, I developed a relationship to where I could call people. They would wire me money without even any docs set up. It's like, we'll get the docs tomorrow. I need the money now. Great. Yeah, no problem. I'm going to the bank right now. I'm going to the bank. Like, that's how cool it is when you get it like that. These guys are like, hold on, everything. I'm going to the bank. Is it okay, Corey? It's going to take me a couple hours. Is that all right? Yeah, it's okay. Do what you can do. Okay. But I mean, what a great feeling. So I bought that guy out, and then really the real work was in the deal itself. So we had drugs at that property. That was our first thing we had to get rid of. Okay. Drugs. Now, so what do? We hired a police person to live in one of our units, and at night he would go around the area, and he'd give us a report every day, and that was working out pretty good. And he kind of knew the area, and we all already knew the area that we thought the drugs were coming from, but they weren't leaving. So then I was like, one day I went out there, flew out there, and I'm talking with him. I was like, "You guys got drug dogs?" He's like, "Yeah, we got drug dogs." I go, "Do you guys ever have like any training events for those drug dogs?" He's like, "What you thinking?" And I was like, let's use our property as a training facility. He's like, that's a great idea. We'd love to do it. Right. And so we put signs on everybody's deal saying that the, Malden Police was going to conduct a K-9 units, right? Was going to go through the property. We had 2 move-outs in the middle of the night.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, drug problem solved.
There it goes.
As soon as they, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that is a good idea. Have a police officer there. We have a couple of properties where we have an officer there, and we comp his rent. So it does keep the crime down, and it's just a constant reminder from everybody, as long as he's not crooked. But I love the drug dog idea. We're actually talking about doing that at one of our properties. Yeah, so. It's
not a bad idea. It really, and just by having that notice out there, it lets people like, oh God. Now he only went on a couple of units. It was like, but yeah, it works. The other thing that we had to do is we did a really good job in underwriting. We knew how much money we were going to spend on rehabs and interiors and exterior stuff, and we just followed our business plan. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we did new roofs. We did a slurry restripe of the parking lot. We took I think we remodeled about 80% of the units inside to a higher level. So now it wasn't like replacing granite or anything like tops, but you could resurface those, right? Mm-hmm. We painted we had really nice wood cabinets. So we painted the wood cabinets and added a new door trim, right? Just little things to make sure like the stupid doorknob is the same as the hinges, mm-hmm. right? Like it's not I call it handyman hack crap.
Yeah, it's not rocket science. It's just,
yeah. So we did all these things, and then we started attracting a better tenant. And then we started attracting a better tenant. We just kept on raising rents. Mm-hmm. And the quicker you can raise rents, and you've got a nice product, and you got great people. So we hired great people. My staff at that property were just tremendous, right? I loved on them, right? I'd go to that was my first property, so it got the most love out of everything I've ever done. Now I barely show up twice a year, okay? But on that one, I showed up I felt like every week,
Yeah, it's only across the country, no big deal.
Yeah, but so I love that one. I loved it a lot, and but gosh darn it, we killed it, and we raised the rent. So I think if I was to look at my financials on that deal when we first started, it was like maybe, and we ended up raising rents like $175 from mm-hmm. where we started to where we ended.
Nice,
right? That's a pretty big bump. If you look at that type of property to go $175 more. Yeah.
And this is South Carolina, everybody. This isn't like Southern California where $175 is, chump change. That's probably.
Yeah, to go to like 600 to like, I think it was 850 is what we ended up at.
Yep. Man,
right.
South Carolina rents. Wow.
And then we had clean financials. And so when we were ready to sell, we'd already done most of the work. There was still meat on the bone. They were like, we didn't renovate everything. Mm-hmm. So they saw that as, hey, there's some opportunity. And I mean, we sold it at a 4.4 cap because like it was smooth operator, man. Mm-hmm. Like it was like hit the easy button.
Yeah. Nice. All right. One more question in here, and everybody, if you've got questions, keep them coming. But from Brian Tylos, he says, do you recommend going in as an LP before a GP?
I think you can. I think that's a great learning experience. I would try to partner with whoever you're thinking about going in as an LP. Ask them for you to be special. Ask them if you can be special. In other words, what I mean by that is if there's a due diligence, ask them if you can be part of that. That you just want to learn to be a fly on the wall, right? Get out and a lot of operators would probably say yes to that if you were the right person and you weren't going to be a pain in my butt. I'd say it. Yeah, it's fine, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Just don't screw up my people and just watch and observe and let's go to lunch when we go to lunch and ask questions.
Good.
Right.
Good one. All right. So we're right about the hour mark. If there's any burning questions, you got about 15 seconds to, type them in there, but
can I give you guys something for
absolutely
free? Can I give you guys some free stuff?
Yep.
Okay. Because I like this group. You got a good group. And so I know, so I'd like to give you guys all my private money course. Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you'll text RPM, I'll put this in the notes here, or text RPM to 480 500 1127. Yeah. You guys can all get my call it my Raising Private Money course for free. And it's just where I talk about It's a really good training series. It just talks about how do you start with, like, people say, hey, Julie, what do you do? You need to have the response. You need to know your response, right? You need to know how to move them from that point to try to get an appointment down the road, right? How do you move business? And a lot of this is based on my training that I got as a financial advisor, where money hangs out, how to get involved in charities, and how to increase your friends and family. And instead of trying to do it just through podcasts and other stuff, how do you get local and find local money?
Good. Well, hey, thanks for that 3-1. I already texted it, and there's some people are wondering who was actually first to do it. I claim it was me. So there you go, proof's right there, time stamped. So Trevor, Rodney, I won. Enough said. All right, Corey, do you got anything else anything else you want to add? Final parting shots?
Yeah, man, I want to encourage you guys. I don't know exactly who's all on and how many deals you've had, but I will tell you this. Mm-hmm. This business has changed my life, okay? Never did I ever think that I could have the amount of wealth that I have and net worth that I have and living my dream than I am today. And, who am I? I'm nobody. I have no more special gifts than anybody else. I'm just an average cat, okay? I've been able to do very extraordinary things, but it's just because I applied consistency, work ethic, and dedication. Okay, nothing that I did different. No special. I mean, I'm a cheetah pet up here right now, right? So I just got new hair replacement. I'm getting older. Like, okay, not everything works so great. But the truth is, all you have to do. Again, I go back to the mindset. But because I want people to win. I really want you guys to win. If you're following Brian, and I mean, what a great guy, right? To put his time and energy to get this thing going. That's a great guy to want to follow, right? And learn and listen and keep your ears open and then do the work. If you'll do all these things, I'm telling you, tomorrow will be better than it was today. You'll keep stacking and get good results, that something big will pop. And when it does, man, it's fun to kind of, when you're climbing that hill and you look down, you see how far you came. And then you realize that you're a new person. You're not the person that you used to be. And that's really how I look at myself, is when I look back at that kid that was selling cars, I'm a way different man now than I was then. And I've learned so much. And my goal, just like Brian is too, is to give along the way. So I encourage you all to share what you know, share it to others, help other people, right? There's people down the rung that's a little lower, that they need a little help. They need the hand up. So I believe we should all be like this, right? One hand is reaching up to get something that you need, and the other hand is reaching down to help someone along the way that needs something from you, right? And if you'll practice that, I think life is really rewarding and fun.
Yeah, that's amazing. Something you just reminded me of. I remember my very first big conference, which was a Michael Blanc event. It was about 20 miles from where I live, which is why I went to it. I remember somebody taking me aside, and we were in the corner of the big room where everyone was networking. He put his hand on my shoulder. He said, "Look at all those people there." I turn around and I look, and there's a lot of people. He's like, "None of them are anything special." And he said the same thing. He's like, "None of them are anything special. And a lot of them have been doing deals for years. Some of them haven't done anything, and he looked at me and he's like, "You can do this." He's like, "You can do this. It doesn't take a whole lot. Just do it." And that was one of those moments that just, opened my mind. And, if I could pass along the same thing, we've got 5 deals under our belt, and, it just takes constant effort. Just like Corey said, constant effort, put one foot in front of the other and remember why you're doing it. So 318 days for me, I've got 318 days till my paycheck stops, and at that point I need to be taking care of my wife and kids and make sure that their paycheck doesn't stop. But anyway, Corey, thank you so much for doing this for us. I appreciate it. I've got a half a dozen DMs, just in the chat window from people saying that how much they love this. I've said this a couple of times. Every time I listen to you, I walk away, motivated. I wish it wasn't 8 p.m. at night where I could actually take this energy and but
call your wife, Brian. Come on, man. Like, yeah.
You got, Angie. No, just kidding. But thanks so much. I appreciate your time. And then for everybody, 2 great books that he has, and, you know, a podcast. Look him up. You know, I'll tell you what, if you listen to his podcast episodes, you're going to get the same amount of energy from each one. So,
hey, if you guys will email me, I'll give you my book for free. Just putting my email up here.
Yep.
But if you'll email me and with your address, my wife will send you our latest book, Copy Your Way to Success.
Awesome.
It's a great book. It really, you know, I try to tell you my story of my son, but in that book, I'm telling you, I'm writing it on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm writing that thing, I have to relive it. And I am crying full-fledged tears as I'm typing it out. And I was like, and then a thought occurred, like, maybe they think I'm a jihad the plane. I better
Yeah. I tell you, I mean, you told me that story. You know, Cliff and I were on the line with you on Saturday. You told me that story. And when you started telling the story here, I'm like, okay, deep breaths. You know, put it on mute for a second. I'm like, all right, deep breaths. Here we go. Because I knew it was coming, but
it's a tough one for me to do. And this is when you know it's real. Because like I've never tried to like every time I tell a story, I make myself go there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why it gets really hard for me to tell it. But I believe that that's what people need to see is the realness and the rawness of that, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you do it wrong, you'll pay for it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And this business can do you. And luckily, you guys are all in the, you know, we're talking multifamily. I believe it's the ultimate place. So congratulations, guys. You're in the right spot. Just do the work and it'll yield great results for you.
All right. Once again, thank you so much. And
thank you for your time.
Appreciate everything.